Welcome to This Team is Killing Us, a podcast about what the Carolina Panthers do to good people. She is Lauren Brownlow. I am Demetri Lauren. And Lauren, what is killing me today is the ever-present, ever-pressing passage of time. I mean, I've been out of the country for the last 2 weeks, and I guess it didn't dawn on me that as soon as my plane touched down in Charlotte, that we would be within the calendar week of the first preseason game of the year for the Panthers.
It's crazy. I mean, there was a preseason game last week, and I was like, excuse me, right, sir, it is July. Like,
I always go out of my way. Like, I bend over backwards not to pay attention to the Hall of Fame game because I hate the football's back conversation for a game then where you see a bunch of people that you've never heard of before play the majority of the game. But I will say, like, as you and I are recording this on a Wednesday, now granted, it's Wednesday morning. I don't think the joint practices with the Browns have actually started yet, but they will start today. They go on for 2 days, and then I believe it's Friday we actually get the game, which weirdly has become about Shedeur Sanders, who I don't think is going to really be much of a factor in this game. But either way, we're here, man. Panthers football is at least at the competitive stage at this point of the season. Or of the calendar. I guess you can't call it the season yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see it personally for, both teams, I guess. I mean, excited as you can be for preseason, right? Like, I'm not.
Well, look, it is better than last preseason when we went in with a quarterback that needed to basically have a hard reset, a head coach that had only spent a year calling plays, let alone running an entire team. And he's telling you, oh, yeah, the starters are barely going to play. Like, he's done a complete 180 on that this year. Let's start with what he told Kay Adams. He explained the decision, why he has done the 180, and you will see the starters in every preseason game this year.
Plan is to play a series or two with the starters for the first 2 preseason games. So I'm excited to get them out there. It goes beyond just the reps in the game. It's the night before. It's the morning of. It's what you eat. It's how you mentally prepare. It's going through your process of body readiness going into the games. Those are valuable reps as much as going out there and actually playing the game. So I'm excited to kind of throw that at the guys, especially some of the younger players, the rookies and all that. But certainly our starters just playing together and feeling what that feels like to prep from the night before all the way going up to it.
So, Lauren, does this sound like a guy admitting a mistake in his approach last year? Or does this sound like a guy just in year 2 of a job?
I mean, I think yes, like, not to cop out, but yes, like, sure. We were screaming into the void seemingly last year about, like, thinking that was a bad idea when it came to Bryce, and that we thought he should play more in the preseason, not less. And I don't know, look, I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, we were right. Because it's never as simple as just one thing, but I do think it's interesting what he said about kind of like the psychological aspect of it, because that was something I hadn't even necessarily considered. I was thinking more like football chemistry, all of that stuff with new guys, and just like getting yourself back used to like game reps and things like that. But what he's saying is like there's a whole like routine that goes into it. And I think like from the moment you saw Bryce against New Orleans, like, and the way he looked out there, just mentally, more so than anything. And that was the thing. And so I think like maybe that, honestly, from the first series in the New Orleans game, maybe he was like, oh, I've made a huge mistake, and immediately realized why, Dave Canales. So
I was about to ask you, do you think this decision was made at the start of, or I guess in preparation for camp, or do you think this start was made after week 2 of last regular season? But you're right. It might have been made like immediately the moment BryceYoung took the field. You mentioned the football chemistry versus the psychological aspect. And that is where, to me, this becomes more about a guy learning to be a boss than a guy regretting an approach or being down in the dumps about a mistake he made, right? Like the routine, the psychology is part of the football chemistry. I mean, it's going to go a huge way to building the trust between these guys on the field, because to your point, Lauren, we saw Bryce for a single drive last year in the preseason. It was in the 3rd game and the Bills were not playing anybody who I mean, look, I can't say this for sure, but it felt like the Bills were playing a bunch of people that were not going to make the active roster, right? And so
I was almost more annoyed they played him in that game. Like,
and when he comes out then in the first game and that first drive against the Saints and looks as bad as he does, like, you've got to believe that killed whatever football chemistry there was. Like, at that point, you had to sit Bryce down to get everybody to even to get them to the place where they could see themselves believing in the guy again.
Yeah, for sure. And like, he needed to get his confidence back up, and he just came in, and like he came into last season rattled to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you add in the fact that like all of a sudden he's got stuff coming at him that he is not accustomed to seeing in a long time, and in just his second year in the league, and the last time he was out there against those types of guys, his ass was on the ground every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And he's getting hit. These enormous guys. Like, we said it too. He was seeing ghosts a little bit.
Well, I mean, in week 2, he was literally crying on the field when he threw that interception against Los Angeles. But it's not, fair. But it's not, I think it's not just Bryce. I think this is Dave Canales looking at the realities of this roster and realizing this team cannot go into 25 as unprepared as they were to go into 24. You look across the league, it's not just people like you and me that talk about the Panthers in their professional life that look at Teterow and McMillan and see a potential superstar. Like, you're hearing that conversation league-wide. That guy's got to be ready to go for week 1. Let's go back to Bryce. In order to get the team to believe that week 1 is going to look more like weeks 16, 17, and 18, in 24, that guy can't wait to you can't wait to put that guy on the field. And then the biggest of all, I think, is the defense. I mean, last year, the overhaul project, and I know it wasn't a full overhaul, but you add 2 really big pieces to the middle of that offensive line, and BryceYoung's problems were not just that he was making bad reads, didn't get held onto the ball too long. Part of his problem was he couldn't stay upright. And some of that goes to communication on the offensive line. When you have completely overhauled the front 7 of the defense, you've got to get those guys as many starts that don't count as you possibly can before the season begins.
For sure. Although I do remember thinking, at least in the New Orleans game in the beginning, that I was like, he's got more time than he thinks.
He certainly had more.
Yeah. And he wasn't used to that. But you're right. I mean, there's a chemistry that it has to exist among everybody, and certainly the linemen talk about that too all the time. Like, they have to get used to each other and whatever, and they have to get used to what their quarterback does and his tendencies too. Right. That's a thing that people don't, especially someone who has to use the scramble. Like, that's something they have to be aware of, and it's hard to be not in rhythm with a guy like that, and you've been blocking for someone that doesn't do that in the same way that Bryce does. So
on the defensive side of the ball for 25, it's also going to be a matter of just figuring out who is starting and maybe even who makes the roster. I mean, with Josie Jewell gone, you suddenly have this situation at linebacker where there are guys that could be on the cut line, but they also could be potential starters for this team. Like, to me, the linebacking core is such a mystery. I think, Jones and Wanham at least go into the first preseason games solidified as the starters on the outside, but in the middle, how much room do you give the rookies to get in there? Like, I think there's so many questions on defense. You've got to give as many different combinations of dudes, as many snaps as possible before this starts to count.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's a lot of, young guys, and it's not all that dissimilar to Bryce in the sense that, like, you want guys at least in a psychological mindset of like game week prep every week, and like getting as many guys out there to kind of get used to what it's going to be like, and figuring out which of the undrafted guys, because Dan Morgan seems to find a one every year. And I know there's a cornerback they like that was an undrafted guy that they've been excited about in camp. I think it's Corey, I want to say Johnson or Jackson. I'm not sure I don't remember right off the top of my head, but I remember being excited when I was reading about him but it's like, they've got to figure out who they're going to keep and who can kind of provide value to them going into the season, and they're going to have a lot of guys to sort of choose from in that way at some of those spots. I'm not acting like that's a great problem though, because like you said, there are guys that are as likely to become the starter as they are to end up on the cut line. And that's a little scary.
It certainly is. You mentioned Bryce relying on the scramble. Did you notice that this week seems to be the week that national hype has come for Bryce? I mean, all in a positive sense, but this seems to be the week that a lot of national outlets are focused on BryceYoung was better than maybe you remember if you are not a dedicated Panthers fan.
You know what? I have to open my mind a little. I received that. You know what? I will receive that, and I will take that as a positive because that's okay. You know what? I used to get mad when people would shade Cam Newton constantly, and I think it's good that they're saying what I believe to be accurate. I don't think it's an over-exaggeration.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a hot take against him either. I think it's just the truth. So I am okay with it. Tentatively.
I texted our buddy T-Bone from WFNZ down in Charlotte yesterday with this very same observation. Like, man, this seems to be the week that the nation has woken up to optimism for BryceYoung. And he said with the downpour of rain at camp the last couple days, everything has been inside. And it has been very clear. All of the names have been in Charlotte. Like all of the big NFL analysts and reporters have been in Charlotte at some point over the course of this week. So people are paying attention. We'll dive into the more meaningful stuff here in just a second. But because you brought up the scramble thing, Matt Berry, for just the go-to fantasy football and betting guy, has listed Bryce as one of those guys that you should have in the back of your mind as your starting quarterback this year for fantasy football. And he highlights how effective BryceYoung became as a scrambler from week 10 forward. And he highlights that not just in terms of when he took off, how many yards he was getting, but how long he was able to extend plays before eventually making the move that became the play, whether that's a throw or turning upfield, whatever the case may be. But Barry's numbers seem to indicate that this was a guy that was more comfortable with waiting for the right move to come to him rather than feel like he was on a timer to get the ball out no matter what, which is why you saw so many checkdowns in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm a big fan of his scrambling as well, because Lord knows he needed to do plenty of it.
EPA, a stat that has become very popular with like the analytics nerds, expected points added, which you're looking at a quarterback for every snap, every throw, etc. I'm just going to read you Barry's quote here on BryceYoung. His EPA per attempts chart looks like Amazon's run up in the tech boom. And if you look at the chart, it really is like, little blip up, little blip down, little blip up, little blip down, largely a straight line until suddenly it just shoots up for the last 4 weeks of the season. All reasons to feel really good, right? The NFL Network yesterday on Good Morning Football began this segment by acknowledging that it is very rare they do an uninterrupted 10 minutes talking about the Carolina Panthers.
I mean, not since Cam Newton's hips upset a Tennessee mother. Probably have they done such a thing.
I mean, you could probably argue, Lauren, because of who they were playing and the season they were playing in Super Bowl 50, they probably didn't get a full uninterrupted 10 minutes of coverage even the week of Super Bowl 50 because there was so much of the Peyton Manning retirement talk at that point.
I don't know. Probably could have devoted a solid 20 minutes to the Cam Newton not falling on the fumble and or walking out of the press conference.
I said the week
of
Super Bowl 50, not
the week leading up.
After.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're probably right about that. Yeah.
So Kyle Brandt says, very simply, you don't remember how good BryceYoung is if you are not, or was if you are not a Carolina Panthers fan for those last 3 weeks of the season. He compared the Panthers in 2025 to the Cardinals, where he said, and he was clear, this was not his prediction, but he said those teams have made such big improvements to the roster, and these are very good rosters now. But given where they are, both in terms of team development and literally physically in the country, they're going to have to get to 7-0 before somebody, or the majority of people wake up and go, oh, that team might be pretty good this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little less nervous about that one because it does seem like, at least it's tempered. It's not, It's not just like, oh, this is, they're going to make the playoffs or whatever. Thank God. But I don't know like how very good the roster is either, considering like I think that there is some promising talent on it, but I don't know that I would say
I think we all get blinded by skill positions, right? Like this is clearly a very good wide receiver group. And if Bryce has made big strides, it would be very easy to say, yeah, this is actually a really good roster.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and we do get blinded by like the offensive side too. Like, no one cares about the defense, I guess, even though it's kind of important. Like, and there are like you said, like is improved in terms of the roster on that side of the ball. Like they have made some improvements. What that means when you're having a historically bad defense, I don't know yet. We'll see, TBD. Yeah. But like I do agree that like there is young talent to like, and so I agree with the tempering of expectations, because anytime somebody talks about them being like a dark horse for the playoffs, I feel a little bile rise up in the back of my throat.
Will Blackman is a former defensive back in the NFL. I forgot this, that he played at Boston College and last year did some work with the Boston College football staff. And you'll remember Bill O'Brien, the head coach at BC now, was BryceYoung's offensive coordinator at Alabama. So Will, it sounds like, is very invested in this guy's development. And he was making a point about why you should look at 2025 and evaluate Bryce alongside Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and that group of quarterbacks, as opposed to other guys in year 3, like CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson.
The way here, I shot a text to Coach Canales, and I was like, what is it about Bryce? Like, what do you see for this year? And he said that, listen, he's owning our schemes. He's letting us expand our concepts. He's leading every day, and he's keeping everyone in the building focused and excited about this season. So I'm pumped, man. I'm stoked for BryceYoung this year. For me, this is year 2, and based on how he finished, multiple overtime wins, which is huge, I think it's going to be great for him.
Expanding concepts really does sound like the kind of thing you say about a guy after his rookie year. And if you think about not just where this team was in 23 versus 24, but what the team was trying to do under Frank Reich versus under Dave Canales, I kind of buy that you got to look at Bryce as a year 2 quarterback.
I mean, considering Frank Reich didn't want him.
Right.
Like,
well, I mean, when I say what the team was trying to do, I mean win versus just collect
right.
that
paycheck. Yeah. So, I mean, like, I just think, and also, like, last year was his first year with Dave Canales. That's, like you said, new play caller. He's got his own sort of breaking in process to do, which I think he did some of, and I think it'll continue to be a thing. And like, obviously it's not just going to be, I don't think, like, it's not like Bryce is just going to be lights out every game. Like, that's not going to happen. It's just not. Defenses are too good, and everybody has lapses, and like, there's going to be a few bad games. It's just, I do have more faith in his ability now to like bounce back from that for sure. And it's like anything else. I'm excited too about where he can go from here. And I think it's like a lot of guys on this roster. I think it's going to be, we're going to have to show some patience. It might be kind of a multi-year project before we're finally seeing like, oh, here's the playoffs, or like, oh, here's the payoff for all of this,
Of course, but I think you needed games. You even needed losses like Kansas City and Philadelphia last year to make you believe that progress is possible. Bryce himself, who is, as much as I love my athletic son, he's a master, like every quarterback, right? A master at saying nothing when you consider the fact that every quarterback has a coach that coaches him in everything from the time they're 11 years old now to going through, the information shutdown in Alabama and his dad working in the mental health space. He's really good at telling you nothing. But he was on WFNZ yesterday and was asked specifically about the reports about how chippy practice had been, particularly between him as leader of the offense and J.C. Horn as leader of the defense. And I thought Bryce gave you an answer that really showed a certain level of comfort. Don't just listen to what he says, but sort of think about the way he is willing to let you in here a little bit. This is a very different Bryce than we saw last year.
It's my first 2 years. It's, you're so focused as a unit on, okay, something we just installed. This is the first time we're running this. This is, all right, what's the next play? What are these little details that are new? What language are we speaking as a team? It's been great now having the same staff this year where, we you know the plays that are coming up. We've talked about stuff. You ran it before. You have banked reps. So, you have a little bit more time to be able to and that's what games are about. The longer, the quicker that you can get past that initial, okay, I know what the read is, I know what the play is, I know the call, I know the splits, all that stuff, and you could think about, okay, what's little small things of the defense? What's little details? What's little things I remember from film? What's little tells I watched? The quicker you can do that, the better. And for us now, that allows us to, maybe do a little bit of chirping back and forth, get the competition up. But I think it's just a sign of us focusing on wanting to get each other better.
He still did all the typical quarterback, all the typical Bryce stuff. When they ask him how he's feeling, he says blessed. When they ask him how, everybody looks, he says confident. He's still doing all the typical quarterback crap. But I think that there is something different about the way he walks you through, or the way he walks you through from the snap to the point that he is, he is flexing at JC Horn. The two of them are punting the ball back and forth whenever they make a big play, that he literally is telling you, I feel more confident now, and here is why. Not only did I not know what the defense was going to be doing from snap to snap in those first two games last year, I didn't know what we were going to be doing from snap to snap in the first two games last year.
And again, I think that's partly where the lack of preseason, not to pile on Dave's mistake there, because we all make them.
Sure.
But it's, that was part of it too. Is even just those reps could have been helpful in terms of making him feel a little bit better about at least what the team wanted him to be doing, if not what the defense was doing. And I think he has, he has learned a lot of that stuff. I think Canales has shown he's very good at working with quarterbacks over the years and offenses. And so we saw the payoff of that towards the end of the season. And I just think there's no reason to think it won't continue to get better. So,
yeah. The Sports Podcast Festival hits the Rialto in 17 days from the time we're recording this, a little over 2 weeks from the time you are hearing it. Please get tickets right now. Do not wait to walk up the day of. We've got all kinds of fun stuff happening at the show. And of course, we have Split Zone Duo headlining the night. Ovius and Gilio will be on stage. Lauren will be on stage with the folks from Big Screen Sports. This is trying to take the event to the next level. The goal has always been that you really are not prepared for the season if you did not hang out at the Sports Podcast Festival. But this year, it is more about us coming out there and putting on a show than it is just celebrating the start of a new football season, which we're still going to do. OG Light will be on tap, courtesy of our friends at Auditory FX. The Butcher's Market is going to be out there with their food truck. There is an exclusive Home Field Apparel long sleeve shirt that you can walk away with. This is going to be a lot of fun. I don't want you to miss it. SPF25, that is the promo code. You can get your tickets by going to therialto.com or etix.com. 3 great shows on stage to start a brand new football season. It is the Sports Podcast Festival happening at the Rialto on August 23rd. Get tickets now at therialto.com or at etix.com. All right, Lauren, so the first preseason game is here, which means cuts are not far behind. And as much as you and I have spent time talking about how good we feel about the skill positions, with cuts right around the corner, it is time to start having those uncomfortable conversations about some of the veterans in the wide receiving corps right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I certainly think the better, if you could be an asset on special teams and you're a wide receiver, I think that will increase your chances at this point, I would assume. But other than that, yeah, they're going to have a lot of tough decisions to make.
The rookies have shown up in camp. Tedero and McMillan certainly has had some issues with man-to-man coverage, but overall, most of the press has been about his ability to just out-leap everybody. You have seen how many highlight videos come out of multiple one-handed catches in single practices, right? There is a lot of expectation for that guy. From the moment that rookie camps opened, there's been nothing but positive reviews from Jimmy Horn Jr. Now we're at a point where a lot of what we're hearing leads me to believe Hunter Renfrow is going to make this roster. So, man, it's time to put some feet to the fire, I think, for a whole lot of different reasons. And let's start with the most obvious one. Not that he is in danger of getting cut, but certainly Xavier Leggett, as much as we like him, it is time to prove he is more than just a social media star at this point.
Yeah, and I've heard certainly some positive things from the Meet the Panthers. Meet the parents. Oh, they're so young.
They are making a fourth one. Perhaps it could be like a Happy Gilmore 2 situation where we shoehorn in every possible cameo we can, including Xavier.
But Xavier, he would be funny in that one for sure. But no, I mean, long term for sure, he's got a lot of pressure on him. I don't think Jalen Coker is unsafe, for instance. But NFL teams don't typically carry a ton of wide receivers, and so like I said, unless you can be a special teams presence. That's the only thing I can think of that could set you apart from somebody else.
We did this, a couple of weeks ago with when we were talking about how realistic is it that Hunter Renfrow makes the roster. I mean, if Renfrow now is looking like a valuable addition, 6 receivers is pretty standard. And I don't think there's a whole lot of room for error.
Right. I agree with that. And it is interesting. I mean, you would like this. I don't know if you saw this, but Hunter Renfrow, BryceYoung was asked about Hunter Renfrow kind of looking like a regular dude. Did you see that? And he's like,
I did see this.
You see me? What do I have really room to say about how Hunter Renfrow looks physically? Come on.
Going back to his time at Clemson, I used to say he looks like a Glee Club president that became a Chick-fil-A manager. Which, but I mean, look.
I love that personally. I always love when guys don't look how they're expected to and end up being really good. I just get a kick out of that. I don't know why.
I always hated him at Clemson, but it was for that reason, right? It was because he was so undeniably he was just there when you needed him to be there. And God, I'm pretty sure I could beat him up. But, you can't
You're
stop him
how is he doing this? That's why you were so mad. You're literally, how is he doing this? Is it magic? Did he get rookie of the year or something where he hurt himself and all of a sudden became the fastest guy on earth for 2 seconds? How is he doing? It's like sorcery with him, but it is, it is something where he's a great, he's a really good route runner. Really, I don't want to use the cliches. I know it sounds cliche. I don't mean it like this because he's a white wide receiver. He just is a smart wide receiver.
But here's the thing. We talk about route running as if it is about timing and precision with a quarterback, but being a good route runner can also create separation too. I think there are things there are things that we associate with the stereotype of being a white wide receiver that still carry a lot of value in the NFL. And Hunter Renfrow seems to be proving it. So let's put Renfrow to the side for a second. The locks to make this roster are probably, tell me if you think I'm missing somebody, Teteroa McMillan, Xavier Leggett, Jalen Coker, and Adam Thielen. And then after that, it seems like Hunter Renfrow and Jimmy Horn Jr. are so far ahead of the pack that the guy that is responsible for the signature moment for Bryce improving, David Moore, is probably on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't want to, I was going to say, because the thing about Horn, in addition to him, obviously doing really well at camp and exciting people, and even though he's not the biggest guy either, he's so fast that kind of makes up for a lot of any size issues.
And look, I mean, maybe other guys are doing the same because we are in camp and you can have multiple returners and they just aren't getting the same kind of coverage. But it does sound like Jimmy Horn is very firmly in the plans to be either a kick returner or the punt returner this year.
And I know they're looking at ETN potentially for another returner. But I would love Horn as a returner because how I feel about the fact that the Panthers have not had a dynamic return man in a while. And
it's a difference maker.
Since Ted Ginn, maybe? Yeah. I mean, I know that I remember anybody after that. And, it was started in the great tradition of Steve Smith, and then he hate me.
Was it Rod Moore? Was that his name?
Rod Smart.
Rod Smart. Yeah,
he hate me and Smitty and Ted Ginn. And so, and it can really, we've seen it against the Panthers, Lord knows, plenty of times, because that's always been my pet peeve with them, is that their coverage units have tended to suck. And so, like, I'm like, okay, like, it can change the whole game. It can flip the field. Like, it's important. And so to have somebody like that back there is exciting. And hopefully he doesn't turn into a Britton Burson where we wasted years of our collective fan experiences watching that guy barely be able to catch the punts.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that unless the Panthers are looking at Horn designated solely as a returner,
right?
I think, unfortunately, it spells doom for David Moore.
Yeah, and I would hate that because I really think he could be a positive piece. And I mean, look, Renfrow has done better than I expected, and I hope everything's fine. Everything is like long-term fine with him physically, and it'll all be okay. But
you know what? That's the other part too. Like, I hadn't really thought about that. You do hope everything is physically fine with Renfrow. It is possible, and I'm a little more open-minded to Renfrow could make this roster than I was when you and I had this conversation about a month ago. It is possible that a lot of the positive coverage has to do with the fact that he is a Carolina's guy playing for the Carolina Panthers. Like, maybe it's a different thing without that lens.
But I do think, and I hate to, I'm not saying this because I don't think he like has done enough to make the roster or doesn't deserve it. I'm not saying that. I'm not there. I don't know. But I do think like you had Dabo showing up and talking about to watch Hunter. Like you have, and there has been a lot of discontentment, consternation, whatever you want to call it, at the fact that there have not been really a whole lot of Clemson. There hasn't been a whole lot of Clemson representation on the Panthers in spite of the fact that obviously they send plenty of players to the league. Right. And so I think like even though that's not going to be the reason they make any kind of a decision, I do think that holds some influence here because like no one is dumb that's making whether it's David Tepper or Dan Morgan or whomever. Like I think they understand that like there are a lot of Clemson fans around here. They see the ACC championship games when it's like all filled up with Clemson fans. Like they understand like, okay, there's an untapped market here that maybe we don't have to see like opposing teams fans.
Right. I mean, this team anymore. Clearly, whether it's Tepper, whether it is the people that the various people he's had making personnel decisions, this team clearly looks at South Carolina as a program that they like the way they develop dudes, right? Why would Clemson not be thought of similarly? Why would Clemson? I was
going to say offended because look at what they've accomplished.
I hear you. I mean, there are certainly times like it frustrates me. Don't get me wrong. I liked Xavier Leggett. Like you can go back to the very early days of this podcast that I was telling you that I thought, or I guess the very early days of the draft process. When we were doing this process, I was telling you how much I liked Xavier Leggett. I like Kyle Kennard coming. Like I think there are talented dudes that come out of South Carolina, but to a certain extent, I've gotten to this point where I kind of throw my hands up and think, why even bother looking at tape or evaluating? Dave Tepper is just going to take the Gamecock because it will fill seats in the stadium for a couple.
But it's not. I mean, and the thing is, this on its own won't either, right? Like it's not like Clemson fans are going to be like, oh, we just spent all day tailgating and drinking at a top, whatever 10 matchup on Saturday. We're gonna get in the car first thing in the morning and drive on down to Charlotte to watch Check's Notes, Hunter Renfrow. Like that's not happening unless there is a more like it's gonna have to be both. It cannot just be like, oh, Hunter Renfrow's here. It will also have to be like, oh, and the team is good and this is exciting and like, you know what I mean? So it'll have to be both.
It would also have to be, and I don't put this out of the realm of possibility because Jalen Coker exceeded all expectations last year, but there's a year's worth of film on Coker now. If Renfrow is having the kind of season or kind of preseason that they say he is, like it's not crazy to think there's a scenario in which he ends up overtaking Coker for that number 4 spot. But we've got to see him make the roster first. Like I think there is a whole lot that we have to do to get from point A to point C before we say, oh, Clemson ties, that will be a difference maker.
Yeah, we'll see. I just am saying, like, especially with all the hype building up around it and stuff, it just won't surprise me at all if he ends up.
Yeah, no, I agree. At this point, I think he's going to. The pictures and video we have seen out of camp this week certainly looked very cool with all of the rain that fell in North Carolina, particularly in the Charlotte area. Dave Canales gave the most Dave Canales' possible answer when asked what he thought about going through this in the rain when you are trying to evaluate guys and a fit for the roster. Dave Canales responded with 3 words: "What a gift." There goes that relentless positivity.
Hashtag blessed.
Yes.
Too blessed to be stressed.
Yes.
Yeah.
He has also said it is not going to alter or derail any plans they have for the joint practice schedule with the Browns, which I think both coaches probably welcome. But at the same time, I think it is we are all business conditioned in this country, right? Particularly as sports fans. We are all conditioned to think about these guys as investments. There's got to be some sort of tempered level of participation. Like, that's why I think all of the news about Shedeur Sanders probably starting this game for Cleveland does not bode well for Shedeur Sanders' long-term future with the Browns.
Well, we'll see. I mean, he is a quarterback with the Browns. Ergo,
fair.
There's no. I mean, we've seen zero indication in the past. How long now? What are we looking at? Like 20 years or so?
Right.
That there's any positive future for a quarterback with
right. I mean, again, talking about Clemson guys, like, take the ickiness out of it. Like, even the monster contract given to Deshaun Watson is not enough to guarantee that he will get any longer of a leash than any other Browns quarterback has ever received.
Yeah. I hope. Yeah. Oh God.
No, I'm with you. That's why I say, like, you gotta bend over backwards, but take the ickiness out of it. Like, it is still another Cleveland Browns quarterback story.
No, for sure. And, I was going to say, even thinking of that, I remember trying to pay attention a little bit to, and to be fair, I do think, like, by this time, like, a lot had come out about Deshaun, so that probably contributed to Clemson fans being a little bit like, But I don't think, like, I don't think they exactly, like, filled it up when the Texans came either, like, just to come root him. But again, like I said, a lot had come out about him, so I don't know that they would have been super, I was just thinking out loud about that. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm always intrigued to see Shedeur play, and I would love to see him. I would love to see him work out, honestly, like in the league, because I think he's better than what he ended up getting drafted at. I thought he was treated a little. I understand, like, a little bit why it went down. I think it was a little harsh too, some of it, and like, we'll see. I
told you during the draft, I think he's the guy ready to start right now, but I don't think he's ever going to get better than he is. Right now, I think he is a low ceiling, high floor kind of guy, and that's
you
fine,
could do much worse in this league, man.
Exactly.
Like, that's the thing, and then these teams don't always understand that, and it sometimes leads them into messy situations with quarterbacks. So
yeah, for sure. So with the preseason game coming up, we'll wrap on this. The first preseason game coming up. Dave Canales says a snap or two. You mentioned that you worry if Bryce comes out.
Series or two. Don't say a snap or two.
Series or two. Sorry. Series or two. You mentioned if Bryce comes out and the offense looks really good in that first series, you worry about what that means for them getting more reps in the game. Do you, in your mind, are you one of those people that sort of think about that schedule of a series, a quarter, a half? That was the way we used to talk about the preseason, and then week 4, the starters take off. Do you have a vision in your mind of how this should go to prepare the team?
Look, obvious caveat here, not an NFL coach. Obvious.
Crap.
I would always say, right, yeah, you have to change my resume. I obviously, I don't ever want, in any preseason game, I don't really want my quarterback playing. I don't want my quarterback playing after the first half.
Okay.
Ideally.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I don't. I would say, I don't even know that I would necessarily have, I obviously would tweak it from game to game, but I would say that, like, I would want my quarterback to play until I feel like me and my quarterback are both satisfied with where they left off. But I also don't want just one series, because that's usually scripted. And so, like, I want to see, that's why I said that, because I'm worried if he has one good series and then Dave Canales will be like, oh, let's sit him down and keep him confident. I don't think we have to baby Bryce as much in that way anymore. I just don't. Yeah. I think he's become mentally tougher than that. And I think I want to see that also as a game scenario, because we've seen the Panthers come out and have a really good first drive and then all of a sudden sputter for a few quarters. And so that's why I'm saying I'm afraid that they'll have the good first series. It's not because, like, obviously I'm not afraid of them being successful. I'm afraid that then the Canals be like, okay, well, we better stop it now. And it's like, no, you don't have to treat Bryce like that anymore. You need to let him like work through. And if it doesn't end as well as the first one, okay, fine. Or whatever. If you want to give him one, if Bryce says, hey, if they go 3 and out and somebody drops a pass or something, and Bryce says, give me one more, I just want to see some flexibility in that way. That's more of what I mean. Like, don't just say 1 or 2 series, because I don't like that as much, but we'll see how it goes.
The Aaron Rodgers thing is such a double-edged sword, right? And I think back to Aaron Rodgers 4 or 5 years ago, where you want a guy you can trust enough that even if he is not there for the beginning of camp, you still know this guy controls the offense, this guy understands every concept. And when I say double-edged sword, it's because you have to give up so much control and so much blind faith that this guy can do that you are married to a situation that if it doesn't work out, you're just fucked. Right. And Bryce is far from that being the case, both in terms of accomplishment and personality. But that's why I think the preseason is so hard to judge what is right, what is wrong. You say you don't want starters playing more than a half. I don't want them playing more than a quarter. Because if the games don't count, why should your starters be in there? But you do have to build something. Like it's so I have a lot of I have a lot of respect for, in our case, Dave Canales, but really any coach that has to think about how do you get guys enough snaps to grow, but not so many you are putting them at unnecessary risk in a meaningless game.
I just, what I want to see, and for the most part, I think Dave Canales has been pretty good about this, especially compared to other Panthers coaches. What I want to see is him learning that like flexibility and adaptability are his friend. And I do think that he has been able to do that in his tenure so far. Like, he's not so stubborn that like if something's not working, he's not going to try something different. Where we've seen, we've certainly seen plenty of Panthers coaches go far longer trying the same thing over and over, wondering why it no longer works. And so I appreciate that about him. I just want to make sure that that's what I would like to see, is I'd like to see him carry that attitude into the preseason and not go in like they can have an idea of what they want to do for sure. But I think like if Bryce says, give me another series or whatever, and like, or if somebody, even if a defensive starter is like, can I get like one more series out there? Like, I don't feel good about the way I ended up. Cool. Like, that's all.
It's a circle back to where we began, right? This is a dude learning to be a coach, learning to be a boss, frankly, a little bit. And sometimes you gotta trust your staff.
Yes. And trust your guys. Trust your players. And to me, it's a little bit like when you're, I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. I meant players using staff in the boss analogy, and then realized that's got a very different meaning in football.
Right. I know. Because at first I was like, well, yeah, of course, trust them. But like, no, I think it's almost like when you're shooting baskets in your driveway or something, you're shooting on your basketball hoop or whatever, and you like are shooting free throws, and your mom's like, oh, it's dinner time. And you miss, and you're like, I'm not going in until I make it. Exactly. Like, it is that same. It's just a human psychological need. I think we all have to like go out on a decent note, and then you can come back to something feeling your best about it, as opposed to being like, God, I can't believe I missed that, or I didn't do this in this series, and then that starts to build up like bad mental energy in your brain. So that's what I just want him to be a little flexible and let him go out when Bryce feels like going out, except for before the half.